All righty. I call the 2,358th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being conducted in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall, joining in the Zoom webinar, or watching on the city's YouTube channel or Comcast cable channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during the community comment time and during the public hearing. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall. Seating in chambers is limited and speakers will be asked to leave after the part of the meeting you are interested in is finished. If you're interested in speaking, please let staff know by emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. For those on Zoom or submitting a yellow comment card, boy, I just blew that. I'm gonna start over. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. For those on Zoom or submitting a yellow comment card for those at City Hall. When it is time to take public comment, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, the Zoom participant list, and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Written comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. The public may also participate in the Zoom webinar by phone by dialing 1-253-215-8782, entering webinar ID 841-6722-7661, and passcode 097479. If you are calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. Contamos con servicio de traducción al español cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad para reuniones por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Translation services are also available in other languages. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. All right, tonight's announcements. The application form for the interim council member recruitment process is now available. Applications may be submitted by email to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov or delivered in person to City Hall, 10722 Southeast Main Street. Applications will be accepted until 5 p.m. on May 3rd. Visit Engage Milwaukie to participate in 2 new projects. First, join the conversation about the police department's body-worn camera program. In addition, take a short survey to let us know what you would like to see in Scott Park, an undeveloped park located next to the Ledding Library. Engage Milwaukie can be found at engagemilwaukieoregon.gov. engage.milwaukieoregon.gov. Purchase tickets to the annual Corporal Diffie Federal Fund Veterans Fund Pancake Breakfast on Saturday, May 21st at the American Legion, Post 180. The fund provides basic temporary assistance to veterans facing dire circumstances until formal veterans resources can be obtained. The cost is only $10 per person, and children under 12 eat for free. The Ardenwell-Johnson Creek neighborhood will hold their annual plant sale on Sunday, May 22nd from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Proceeds from the sale support the development of Balfour Park. Clackamas Community College and WorkSource Oregon are hosting a career fair on May 24th. This will be an in-person event for job seekers to learn about career paths, network, and get hired. Fair is free and open to the public and will run from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Oregon City campus. Save the date for the next Letting Library lecture series called Preservation, 3 Experiences. The event will be on Wednesday, June 1st at 6:30 p.m. and focus on topics to help preserve our historic places. For more information about each of these events and others, visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555, and staff will provide you with the information you need or connect you with someone who can help. Councilor Demas.
Yeah, I'd like to make a brief statement after what happened this weekend in Buffalo. My heart goes out to the community of Buffalo and those families affected by this tragedy. We must be resolute in our conviction in battling this kind of racial hatred. We know white supremacist terrorists want to divide communities and have us live in fear. Our diversity is our strength. Black people are constantly dealing with racism, hatred, and discrimination, and it is exhausting. Especially in our country, the country Black people helped build. We must advocate for justice and equality from this city hall to corporate boardrooms. Racism is an illness that must be remedied. We must call out and report racism and discrimination in an effort to help heal this sickness. We must not allow each generation to learn hate to the extent where we see these types of hate crimes committed on a regular basis. People need to know that hate has no place here, and the actions in Buffalo are unacceptable. We must do more, and we are better than this. Thank you.
Mayor, before we continue, I'd asked Desi if I could also read a statement from the Milwaukee Police Department. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to add that to this discussion. So the statement was developed by Chief Luke Strait and the Milwaukee MPEA. So this is from our union line employees as well. As we all continue to process the deadly hate crime that happened in Buffalo on Saturday, we wanted to reach out specifically to our BIPOC community. Every indication is that this was a racially motivated and targeted attack of truly shocking proportions. We can only try to imagine all the ways incidents like this make our communities of color feel and the lasting impact they have. Although the right words can be impossible to find, we know silence is not the answer. We want to acknowledge how horrific this was and share the heartbreak, confusion, and outrage this incident once again reignites. You're not alone. We can only commit to continue to work closely with our BIPOC community and the members of the Milwaukee Police Department to try and ensure our communities most impacted feel safe and supported. We cannot undo the harm that this incident has caused, but we will continue to combat the kind of hatred and evil that led to this horrific event. From Chief Strait and the Milwaukee Police Department.
Thank you.
Yeah. Feels hard to move from that to such a joyful next thing. But our next is the Milwaukee High School Outstanding Student Award. And this will be presented by our principal, Carmen Kelman.
Well, and I'm proud to say that Jenny did some equity work last year on our equity committee, so great student that I'm bringing forward. This is Jenny Hackenberger, Student of the Month. And I sent you all information, which I've already explained to Jenny, But just want to again acknowledge how much she's done with just in her own personal high school career, and how she set herself up for a really bright future with taking all the AP courses, but just really stretching herself out across the school and being involved in so many things, from music to theater to she did the polar plunge this year with the SLCA students, the equity work, all of it. Like, she's just really involved. She tries things, tennis. She just tries a lot of things, and she's a leader. So I'm really, really proud of you. I think you're a phenomenal young person with a really bright future. And I want to read some things that a few teachers said, and I don't have all of them because this is probably the quickest response I ever got when I brought a student's name up and sent it out to the staff and asked for any comments or things that they wanted to share. And right away, I just had lots of feedback. So I'll read a few of these. First, I'll try without my glasses. But Jenny is fantastic. She has a sharp wit and a great sense of humor. It has been such a pleasure to work with her, and although there are many moments that I remember fondly, I think just being able to see Jenny engage and be such a wonderful part of our community has been the best. She's just great, Mr. Peterson. Jenny is patient, kind, intelligent, and a creative person who's been a joy to have in class. It's been really fun to see the work that she's created so far this semester. I'm really glad that I got to meet her before she graduated, Mr. Hurlbut, who's an art teacher. Jenny joined the swim team as a junior and worked diligently to master the sport. As our team captain this year, Jenny made connections with our new swimmers and worked with them to improve their skills and feel comfortable on the team. Congratulations, Ms. Ballant. I'm just gonna read a couple more because. So Jenny is passionate about words, and it shows in her analytical and creative writing, her work out on stage, and the way that she expresses her ideas with insight and precision. It's been a joy working with her throughout her high school career. You have so much to offer the world, Jenny. Ms. Fusen. I had Jenny junior year in AP Biology. While she spent the first majority of the year in distance learning, I had the pleasure of seeing her for the hybrid portion of the year. Jenny was a top participant in all of the science activities and worked diligently during the class period on assignments. She worked well with her table group members and was a delightful addition to the class. Jenny was a wonderful addition to our equity club last year, offering good ideas and a positive attitude. She's also an incredible actor. Our school is lucky to have her. And I wanted to talk about that equity work because last year the work that the students did was phenomenal. The lessons by students, for students, and just, it was really good. And so I think that there's a light, right, with Jenny, and that's what she brings here tonight. And so we're just really grateful to have you here and have you part of not just the school, but this community and the world in general, because we need more people like you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you. Tell us, I'm very interested that you're hoping to go into astronomy. Do you have a specific part of astronomy you're interested in, a specific aspect?
I just love how, I just love the idea of being able to help humanity move forward in that way. I would love to just be able to help put people on other planets and just explore our universe. I really think it's so cool, and I really like it. Yeah.
It's fun to see that alive. When I was young, that was, people were excited about that because space travel was really just, I was pretty young when we landed on the moon, but I can remember it clear as day.
Yeah.
And then it kind of fell out of fashion for a while, but it's really cool to see that you're excited about that.
Yeah, and there's so much cool stuff happening right now.
Yep.
It's so cool.
Nice. All right. Well, usually we have each of the council members speak. You want to start?
I'm happy to start. So I love your balance or your breadth of everything, like the science. I will say I was one of those girls who was afraid of science, so I'm glad to see you like embrace the science and the theater, you know, sort of the whole range of things. The saxophone too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you been playing a while?
Yeah, since 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And will you continue to play in college?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah. Nice.
Jazz
Nice.
especially.
And the swimming and just all the things. So you're really impressive young lady with all these, you know, and I love that. I mean, you know, I remember starting into college and like just wanting to try this and that. And, you know, it's great. You know, don't let yourself get pigeonholed and, you know, take college as a great lab where you get to try all kinds of things. I see also you're a reader, and I try to be a reader, although I don't get as much reading done anymore as I used to. But do you have a book to recommend for me?
Oh, think.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot. If nothing comes off the top of your head, don't worry about it.
I don't think I had just finished a book, but I'm trying to remember what it was all of a sudden. But Mr. Peterson, who was one of the teachers that said something last year, he recommended Cloud Atlas. And I've really liked that one.
Did you? Yeah, that's a big one.
Yes.
I'm going to read that one of these days. I don't know how soon, but one of these days. Okay. Well, thank you for everything you do for the school community and for our community. And we look forward to watching you bloom as you move on to the next stage.
I'd just like to point out, I wasn't alive when they landed on the moon. Even though I got these gray hairs, I was not alive.
You think I'm old?
No, I'm just saying. Jenny, what event did you look forward to most this year, and did it live up to expectations?
The event would probably be the State Thespian Festival for Oregon Thespians. It was in Salem in April. And I'm an international thespian officer, so that means that like there's like 6 of us in the country, and we like help run an international version of it, but that's later. So the state version was really amazing. We got to see Main State Productions from Ashland. And it was just really amazing. There's like tons of workshops, and some of my favorite ones had to do with like Foley artists, and then there was like how to increase diversity in theater, and it definitely exceeded expectations. We also raised a lot of money for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and I got to like help run the donations that we did for that, and so that definitely like exceeded my expectations, and I loved it.
So you said there's going to be an international one? What would that look like?
It's at Indiana University in Bloomington in June. And it's kind of like that on a bigger scale. They have shows from across the country that they have put on there. And then once again, more workshops, some that I'm actually going to be leading, including another one about diversity and like how to increase that in different thespian troupes. Yeah.
Do you have some ideas that you could share about how you do that?
Definitely just reaching out to different schools like equity groups. I'm also a part of the Asian Pacific Islander group. And so reaching out to them specifically because like so many shows that highlight diversity are amazing, but then also if you don't have those people in theater, it can be kind of bad. So reaching out to those groups and making sure that like they are feeling represented in their shows, and then that like, I don't know, that they're feeling accurately represented. I kind of talked in a circle there, but.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. And congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second everything that has been said. You're an amazing I'm always struck by the young people that are really good, really strong academically. They're athletes, they're musicians, they're art, all the things. It's so hard to do. Most people get very, they focus on one, maybe two things that they get good at. And you keep bringing us people that are like brilliant at everything. I don't know when you sleep.
I think she's,
I'm curious, what are your events on swim team?
I do breaststroke. That's my favorite one. And I like doing relays. Yeah, because I like working as a team.
So the medley relay.
Yeah, definitely. And I've done some freestyle relay too, but I just like being on a team for it. It makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I swam for 5 years, I think, and breaststroke was my stroke too.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I like being able to breathe every stroke.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm very excited for your career, where you're headed, and would love to continue to get to hear how that's going. And, as Lisa said, your sort of exploration in college and how you come out of there and where you end up, if you end up at NASA or, Goddard or wherever. Be very, very curious to follow your path.
Thank you.
It's super exciting.
I don't think I've ever met a student that has done as much as Jenny has. Like, as far as being involved in so many different activities and events, and I just haven't. It's amazing.
She's extraordinary for sure.
She's extraordinary.
All right. The City of Milwaukie is proud to recognize for outstanding student achievement in academics, civic engagement, and extracurricular activities at Milwaukie High School, Jenny Hackenberger. Let it be known to all on the 17th day of May, 2022, the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, recognized this student as an excellent example of the bright future of this community and nation.
We're proud parents. Good job. Go right over there to him.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
But I need all of them. We can have
Do you want the?
Yeah, that's good. You can take it. Yeah, just one good. Breathe.
Be that moment in history, right?
Yes. There you go. That's great. Thing. All right.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
All right. That was
Hey,
Ms. G. Tell us about the high school.
cool. Well, we have prom on Saturday, so that's going to live up to our expectations, we hope. We're excited. It's been a couple years, so we have prom. Everybody's looking forward to it. Very excited. And then this month is just packed with all kinds of stuff. Obviously, AP exams, prom. We have another dance that we've added for students since they didn't get one. And then just as the year winds up, we have, powder puff and all the regular high school traditions that we've had in the past. We have a musical coming up, and then we have a combined musical or music and choir concert coming up. So lots of stuff still happening in May, and then we move into graduation and the end of the school year. So, I think right now what we're doing as a school is just hiring new folks for next year, planning for next year with scheduling and all of those fun things that you probably don't want to hear much about, but.
You're not losing any staff, right? As far as numbers.
No, we aren't. We're actually the only high school that's gained in numbers for the last couple of years in the North Clackamas School District.
I told them that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Back when we were doing on the building committee, I said, no, you got to stop thinking that way. Milwaukee's going to keep growing. The school's going to get bigger. They didn't listen.
Yep.
to me.
So when I got there 4 years ago, we had 980 something students, and we're next year we'll have 1,247, around 1,247.
Yeah.
So we're the only school that actually gained staffing this year. So I'm just really excited that we will have the kind of support that we need for our students, and always need more, I believe, especially around social emotional learning and different things like that, but mental health supports and stuff,
Yeah.
especially right now and during these times. So our I think just the community in general, and students and families and staff even, that, there's a lot going on around that. So, but yeah, excited about where we're moving. So.
Sounds great.
Now, will you be back next month with another student, or was Jenny the last one?
I have to look at the date. I was thinking about that on the way up.
Okay.
I don't know. I have to look. What's the date of the next?
The second meeting in
The second meeting, that's right. I'll probably do that.
21st.
Oh, no, I won't be back. Jenny's my last one. Jenny's my last one, and what a way to end. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Well done.
anyway.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all so much
Thank
for
you.
just how you treat our students when we come, and just how respectful and honoring you are to them. I really appreciate it. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for me to show you how wonderful our kids are. And I just am very honored. So thank you.
Well, thank you for always
Thank-
bringing
yeah.
such
Walk
great
away
ones.
from here yet, though.
Yeah.
So I'll say it. If you're not back here in June, then this is the last chance I have to thank you for an incredible partnership. You have changed us. You changed me, and you've made the city better. And I really have loved working with you. So I'm excited about what's next in your world, but it has been such an absolute delight getting to know you better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Have a good night.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Great job.
Okay.
Great young woman.
And then there's me.
Well, this night is just ping-ponging all over the place.
Well, some people want to shoot me off to Juniper and just let me be there, so.
Okay, so let's see here. You're doing Dogwood Day?
Dogwood Day and Preservation.
Okay. Excellent. Dogwood Day Proclamation, and Greg Hemer.
I'll just very briefly kick it off this evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for letting the Dogwood Day Proclamation on the agenda once again. Dogwood Day, for those who don't know, is Milwaukee's civic birthday, so to speak. It was May 21st, 1903 that our community was incorporated through an act of the state legislature as a municipal corporation. The community, of course, has roots deeper than that, the century before that, and much deeper into that. And tonight, we just paused to remember Dogwood Day, and we have our partners, the city's partners, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and the Milwaukee Historical Society. And I'm going to stop sharing because I'm just remembering as I'm saying that first up, we're going to welcome Phyllis Hines from the Daughters of the American Revolution to make a few remarks.
Good evening, Mayor Gamba and the members of the council. My name is Phyllis Hines. I'm the regent of the Susanna Lee Barlow chapter of DAR. The missions of the Daughters of the American Revolution are to promote historic preservation, education, and patriotism. May is Historic Preservation Month. On May 27, 1952, the Susanna Lee Barlow chapter presented and dedicated the marker named Dogwood Tree at Niedermeyer Home. The marker reads, Dogwood Tree, the native Pacific dogwood over 100 years old, the largest in the United States. Height, 65 feet, circumference, 7 feet. Susanna Lee Barlow Chapter, DAR, April 27, 1952. The Susanna Lee Barlow Chapter of DAR is proud to be in partnership with the City of Milwaukee and the Milwaukee Museum on the celebration of Dogwood Day and Milwaukee's history. Our involvement this year included working last Saturday at Farmers Market booth and assisting with judging the many wonderful dogwood photographs. As education is also a priority for our chapter, we sent the city's dogwood packet to each of the Milwaukee elementary schools. We included a list of K through 2 social studies standards, which are met through study of history of community. Your inclusion of the Susanna Lee Barlow chapter in the Dogwood Day Proclamation is an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got to tell you, Phyllis at the farmer's market, she has been a kindergarten teacher for like 30 years. There must have been 30 to 40 people that knew her back from the day when she was teaching. She is an amazing, wonderful person. And if you are a DAR member, can trace your roots back to the American Revolution, please consider joining. So.
Thank you, Greg.
Mayor Gamba, City Council, and City staff, thank you for having the Milwaukee Historical Society the owners and operators of the world's largest museum dedicated to City of Milwaukee's history. Milwaukee Museum, open Saturdays, 1 to 5 p.m., located at 3737 Southeast Adams Streets, are proud to present tonight's proclamation for May 21st, being Dogwood Day, the Dogwood City of the West. The history of the dogwood stretches all humanities in Milwaukee. The Clackamas people use it for material and basket weaving. Mrs. Schindler presented it as her pride and joy. And the residents today use it as a springtime passing in the yards, as the city uses it as their emblem today. The dogwood tree, its flower, its growth, its canopy, its roots, and its significance is much more than just a tree. It symbolizes what people can do together as a community. Build a foundation from roots, branch out, and blossom to spread the ideals we believe in. Sometimes our tree may have some fungi that halts the spread of progress, or sometimes the tree has roots that halt certain storms. But together, we ultimately rely upon ourselves, our community, our government, to guide us together into a budding and growing tree. Today, the people of Milwaukee continue to appreciate the Pacific dogwood and other dogwood species, and also recognize the dogwood as our shared emblem, not only to the commitment to our Earth's security and safety, but also to each other. It is a symbol that goes beyond our slogan of Dogwood City of the West, but is embraced by planting in yards, parks, and shared spaces. Thank you.
And for the 4th year in a row, the city hosted or put on a Instagram photo contest, social media photo contest, spearheaded mostly on Instagram, starting in late April and going through May 15th, which was Sunday. We asked community members to take photos of dogwoods throughout the community and put them on social media in a way that the public can see it using the hashtag Milwaukee Dogwood, and when possible, tagging the city of Milwaukee in their posts. We had a record number of 18 submissions this year. Special thanks to members of council and the city's arts committee and the Historical Society and the DAR for helping promote the contest. It was a great turnout. The next few slides, and I'm sorry we can't get much closer in the PowerPoint resolution world, but we had some really, look at the contrasting colors of the one on the left there, the right there. So these are some of the submissions. And we had, you can really see the white one is the Pacific. The ones that are white are the Pacific dogwood, the Cornus natale, which is the city's official dogwood and the native dogwood to the area. The pink ones are apparently more sturdy, more easily to grow and curate. And so you see a lot of pink ones around town more than the white ones, I think. But we, as Greg mentioned, we accept all of them. And so we had some really good submissions this year. Thank you to everyone who participated. And our selection committee met yesterday, and we want to congratulate at juniper.and.u for the one on the left, the lighter pink one with the contrast with the greens and the blue sky behind it. And then at Velveeta Olita, also on Instagram, for the wonderful contrast with what we believe, the committee believes that is a sunrise versus a sunset, but a sunrise view of through a dogwood tree. We did try to reach out to them via social media. We didn't hear back from one, but I don't think we have any of our winners here today. Doesn't look like it. So at Juniper and you and at Velveeta Olita, please stop by City Hall and get your prize. This year's prize is a Dogwood Day poster puzzle. So thank you to Nicole Madigan and the Deputy City Recorder for coming up with that this year. And thank you to everyone who participated. And I believe with that, Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind reading the proclamation.
So gorgeous photos. Good job. Whereas the Pacific dogwood, Cornus natale, was nurtured and cultivated by the earliest settlers of the Milwaukie area, including the Clackamas people who used the dogwood to weave baskets and make other utensils. And whereas the Oregon State Legislature incorporated the town of Milwaukie on May 21st, 1903, after years of organized community action that sought to seek local control of the area's infrastructure and shared spaces. And whereas on April 27th, 1952, a plaque was placed by the Susanna Lee Barlow chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution at the home of Milwaukee's first mayor, Wildam Schindler, to mark the location of the then largest native Pacific dogwood in the United States, which stood at 65 feet in height and 7 feet in circumference. And whereas on June 9th, 1962, the City Council designated the Pacific dogwood as the city's official flower and the Dogwood City of the West as the city's nickname. And whereas the people of Milwaukie continue to appreciate the Pacific dogwood and other dogwood species by planting them in yards, parks, and shared spaces. And whereas by designating May 21st as Dogwood Day, Milwaukie continues to recognize the beauty of the dogwood blossom as an emblem of our shared commitment to the earth and to each other. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, Municipal Corporation, the County of Clackamas, and the State of Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 21st, 2022 to be Dogwood Day in Milwaukie, the Dogwood City of the West. Thank you.
And here are some images of the plaque that's currently resides at the Milwaukie Museum that was mentioned by Phyllis, that was placed at the across the street from what's the Schindler home, Niedermeyer home.
So it was placed in 52, and that tree came down in
Columbus Day Storm.
Columbus Day Storm, which was
62, but then I think it was damaged in 62 and then finally removed in 64.
Okay.
And one of the goals is, as we work on the new Dogwood Park, that we could put that plaque into Dogwood Park to help celebrate the idea of what dogwoods mean to us. If we can figure out how to move the rocker.
All right. I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the city to Greg and the Milwaukie Historical Society, and thank you, Phyllis, for your continued partnership with the DAR.
Want to sign one? This is a nicer one. Okay,
All right.
so I think I'm next.
This is the start of the slides for
Historical Preservation Month. And you are doing this.
Yes, I am. Well, I'm introducing Greg. I did write the pilot column. Every month the counselor writes a column in the pilot, and the timing worked out just perfectly for me to get to write it this month because historic preservation is something I really do care about. I happen to live in a 110-year-old home here in Milwaukie, but I was a fan of historic preservation sort of all my life. I love old buildings and I like to see them preserved and reused where possible. I really appreciate the work the Milwaukie Museum has done. In 2019, they did their first historic home tour in Milwaukie, and they're about to launch after a COVID hiatus, they're about to launch into their second one. So, and Greg will tell us about that and other events in honor of Historic Preservation Month. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. So Mayor Gamba, City Council, and City staff, thank you for having the Milwaukie Historical Society, the owners and operators of the world's largest museum dedicated to the city of Milwaukee's history, the Milwaukie Museum, located at 3737 Southeast Adams Street, open Saturdays, 1 to 5 p.m., are proud to present tonight's proclamation for May 2022 Historic Preservation Month. Change happens every day in our lives, our community, and in the universe. Without change, life would be boring or even non-existent. But our past, like historic buildings, help tell our story of where we began and what to either repeat or do better in the future. Our newest exhibit and book, entitled Then and Now, displays photographs of a time gone by side with what it looks like today. For example, the slide you are seeing is from Milwaukie, 1955 on the left, and Milwaukie of 2022 on the right. Look at the tree canopy compared between the two.
That's it.
But also in this photograph, you can see some iconic structures like Portland Waldorf School, Hager Pond, the Strebe House, the William Schindler Building, just to name a few. These symbols of Milwaukie are reminding us of days gone by, preserving Milwaukee's history for future generations, fostering local pride, encouraging local economic growth, being environmentally responsible, all while enhancing livability. After Milwaukie Historical Society's impressive 2019 historic home tour in Island Station, we were excited to announce our next home tour in the historic Milwaukie and Lake Road neighborhoods. It was to be anchored with such great buildings as the Ledding Library, Strebe House, Failing House, and the Hager Pond. We would have showcased some of the most amazing buildings in our historical past and award winners in our current building realm. Unfortunately, due to concerns over COVID and lack of homes to match our revenue goals, we had to cancel this year's program. I'm sorry to say that.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
We will try again and look to feature some mid-century architecture in this tour in the upcoming years. We have not given up. We're just putting it on pause. To celebrate Historic Preservation Month, Milwaukie Historical Society, along with our partners, City of Milwaukie, Ledding Library, and Willamette Falls Studios, will feature our June Ledding Library Lecture Series Towards Preservation. Do not miss the June 1st event, starting at 6:30 p.m. inside Ledding Library and live on Zoom as we discuss building preservation with the State Historic Preservation Office official, discussing the values and tax incentives of home preservation. Steve Bennett informing the audience on how to research your home's history. Mike Schmier conversing about his feelings in living and preserving a historic home, and a very special address by Councilor Beatty. Please see City Council for Zoom information or join us live. Seats are limited, so come early. As always, Mr. Mayor and city staff, Milwaukie Historical Society would offer our hand in volunteering towards updating the historic resource inventory list as required by our comprehensive plan. We may not be experts, but we know that we have proven over time to our wonderful residents and our truly superb city staff that we can not only follow direction, but accomplish our tasks in front of us. Thank you for letting us address you again tonight. And Mr. Mayor, will you please read the proclamation?
Whereas the preservation of historic places is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas since 1973, the National Trust for Historic Preservation and countless other communities across the United States have marked May as an annual time to reflect on the importance of preserving places that reflect America's history. And whereas modern-day Milwaukie, situated in the historic homeland of the Clackamas people, was established in 1847 and incorporated in 1903, the city boundaries encompass a range of potentially historic buildings from late pioneer-era structures through Victorian, Craftsman, and other historic eras and styles, to exceptional mid-century architecture. And whereas residents of Milwaukie and the many volunteers of the Milwaukie Historical Society have helped raise awareness of historic resources and buildings in our community, including by launching the first historic homes tour in 2019, which will return on August 20th, 2022, or not, in the historic Milwaukie and Lake Road neighborhoods. The preservation of historic places has a positive impact on communities by strengthening neighborhoods, encouraging local economic growth, providing a physical link to the past, and by being environmentally responsible. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Historic Preservation Month in Milwaukie to increase public understanding of the importance of preserving our history for future generations.
And if I just may say publicly, we worked 6 months on the historic home tour. And I want to thank everybody that was on the team that tried to make that accomplished. Unfortunately, timing just was not right this year. And hope to see you all June 1st.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is Public Works Week proclamation and it will be kicked off by our Public Works Director, Peter Pastorelli.
Thank you, Mayor Gamba. Good evening. My name is Peter Pastorelli, and I'm the Public Works Director. I'm here this evening to introduce the proclamation for the National Public Works Week, which runs from May 15th through May 21st, 2022. This event marks the 62nd Annual National Public Works Week. A public works department is essential to a healthy, safe, and functioning city. Milwaukee's Public Works Department is staffed by 39 hardworking and dedicated employees focused on providing vital services to the community. Public Works ensures community members can move safely through city streets, that community members are provided clean, quality drinking water, that wastewater from homes and businesses is collected and delivered to a treatment facility to protect public and environmental health. Public Works staff ensure that our urban forest, waterways, and riparian areas are protected, and that the city is prepared and resilient for climate change, and that our community facilities are lit, warm, and ready to be utilized. As our city grows, our department will ensure the community's infrastructure is matching the capacity and demand of all of our needs. We'll continue to weave equity, climate, and resiliency goals into our infrastructure planning and explore new unique opportunities for the community, such as energy systems, new green spaces, alternative transportation networks, et cetera. And most importantly, Public Works will continue to maintain the city's current infrastructure to the community's expectations by employing local Oregonians, investing our dollars into Milwaukie, and constructing and maintaining a city that will be entirely equitable, delightfully livable, and completely sustainable. As the director of Milwaukee's Public Works team, I'm proud of their hard work and their contribution to the community. With that, I'll pass it over to Mayor Gamba to read the proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Your team does a great job. Whereas public works services are important to the health, safety, and well-being of Milwaukee citizens, and whereas these services are provided through dedicated public works professionals who oversee water distribution, water treatment, wastewater treatment, sewer systems, urban forests, equipment services, public properties, solid waste systems, city streets, and water utilities. And whereas 2022 marks the 62nd Annual National Public Works Week, and this year's theme is Ready and Resilient. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 15th through 21st, 2022 as Public Works Week in Milwaukie.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community members' statements regarding city business. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table just outside the door. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to, begin, click the microphone option to unmute yourself. If you are calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during the community comments may be new, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the May 3rd community comments, Ms. Ober?
There is not at this time. Thank you.
All right. I have no yellow cards. Scott, do you have?
Double checking the email, Mr. Mayor. I see no comments, and I see no community comments from the audience.
Okay. Then moving on. Tonight's consent agenda includes the minutes of the City Council from April 12th, 2022 study session, April 12th, 2022 special session, April 19th, 2022 work session, April 19th, 2022 regular session, a resolution acting as the local contract review board authorizing a contract with Blink Charging Company to install electric vehicle charging stations, a resolution adopting the 2021 water system master plan, and a resolution adopting the 2021 wastewater system master plan. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove items C and D, the two master plans. In discussing with staff earlier today, I asked, it turns out it was inadvertently left out to have a link to the full plan. Our packet only had the executive summary. It did not have the full plan or a link to the full plan. So the Public Works Director said he would, put it in the next packet with that link so that people can get access to the full plan.
All right.
So with that, I would move to approve items A and B from tonight's consent agenda.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve items A and B from tonight's consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. C and D will be on the next council meeting. All righty. The next item, transit police contract resolution. This will be presented by our police chief, Luke Straight.
And everyone else in the audience.
And
So if
a
people
bunch
wanna
of,
come up,
and a bunch of
please.
guests. Come on up, whoever's going to speak.
You can have a seat if you want to pull up.
And Sheriff, we're expecting a really long soliloquy, so if you want to come up.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Gamba and council. My name is Luke Straight, and I'm the Chief of Police for the Milwaukie Police Department. As you can see, I'm joined here this evening by our partners with TriMet. And with us this evening, we've got a number of people. I really intend to introduce the topic and then scoot out of the way and let other folks talk. TriMet has been a fantastic partner with the city of Milwaukie and the Milwaukie Police Department over the years, and I know you've heard from them several times over the past 12 to 24 months, updates on things that TriMet has been doing. I'm here this evening to recommend that council authorize the city manager to sign an IGA for services, a partnership between the Milwaukie Police Department and the Transit Police. Back in April of 2021, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office took over as the agency lead for the Transit Police Services. And Sheriff Mike Reese is here with us this evening. I wanted to introduce him as well as his other partners. If Sheriff Reese is here, I'm going to let him briefly introduce the rest of the team.
Thanks. Sheriff Reese. Good to see you.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you so much for allowing us to come before you tonight. And I wanted to introduce TriMet officials Andrew Wilson and John Gardner, who are actually going to do the presentation, provide you information about the IGA and the changes that we've made in our transit police division and the different approaches that we're taking with safety and security on the transit system.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Safety Security for TriMet. It's an honor to be with you today. I'm a native of Gresham, but I'm considering relocating to Milwaukie after sitting through all of this really good information. With me today is John Gardner.
And I direct Transit Equity, Inclusion, and Community Affairs, and I too am closely looking at Milwaukee. Great to be here.
You've sold us. Yeah. We're going to take you through kind of a brief presentation, as Sheriff Reese pointed out, just about kind of where we've grown and kind of what's been happening over the last couple of years. I'm going to let John kind of kick things off, talking about how our Reimagine public safety initiative at TriMet, which John has been instrumental in leading, has brought about some great changes, and we're going to bring you up to date on those. Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about our excellent partnership with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. So go ahead, John.
And I don't know if you received the PowerPoint we sent, but we could.
We did, and I'm going to just fill some space right now because one of the things about our city recorder, who is amazing, is that he cannot handle someone not being named on the dais. So he has left to print a name badge. And we'll be returning in approximately 15 to 20 seconds while I just keep talking so that you're filling the space.
And no problem. And I was going to do this during the presentation, but we also have Marissa Clark. She's the Reimagine Program Coordinator from TriMet. And she's one of the outcomes of the project, so just wanted to give her a shout out. She's done a ton of work, the project as it exists. And I think we were limited tonight to a shorter presentation, but anytime in the next few months, if you'd like us to come back and do a full 40-slide deck of Reimagine, we can certainly do it. But tonight, we're going to be very succinct.
We're very excited by the change. I know it happened suddenly when we stepped away, and it was not a comment on our cops, and it was not a comment on TriMet. It was concerns with Portland PD, and we couldn't be happier with the shift that's taken place, and we're very excited to have, at least I am very excited to have our officers involved again in the program. I think it's a good opportunity for them, and look forward to hearing about it.
Thank you, Mayor Gamba.
All right. So again, as Andrew said, this is just a project update around our current Reimagine efforts and our partnership with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. So as the gentleman gets back to his desk, he can go to the next slide. But just a little bit of context. I mean, I think we've used this photo a lot, and you all hopefully understand what was going on that week or that summer. And as most of you know, we began our Reimagine efforts and the process in July of 2020 after hearing calls for racial equity and social justice following the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and far too many others. Our first step as an agency was to take a pause and reduce our footprint on transit police in our partnership with Portland Police, and take a portion of our safety and security budget and set those aside for community-informed safety strategies. The project approach was threefold. First, conduct massive community-wide listening sessions and engagement. And over the course of that crazy summer, we engaged over 13,000 folks, and about 3,000 of them were from Clackamas County. Also to do research, look around the country and understand what practices, promising practices or best practices we could glean from other large similar communities around transit and public safety. And finally, sort of take all that information and work with the community to develop new strategies to make our system more safe and welcoming. Next slide. And so at the heart of all this effort has been our partnership with community-based organizations. When we did our first outreach, we actually worked with 42 community-based organizations to do all of those outreach, to survey, to do focus groups. That transitioned to about 17 that sat down with us and created
the draft recommendations. And now, even today, I think we have about 16 community partners who are governing our efforts as we start implementing the recommendations from all of that work. Next slide. So those recommendations are a lot, 24, but we're making great progress with stewardship from Marissa and many others. And even tonight, just working with community, we met with our Reimagine stakeholder group to really talk through like something that might seem simple, like community safety reporting, but unless it's informed by the community, we don't really know if we're tracking the right outcomes, the right information. And we had the beginning of a robust conversation that we are excited to continue at our next meeting. So the main things we heard really centered around training for our staff and our security and our partners when it comes to safety and security, and system presence, both what that would look like for police presence, unarmed presence, new strategies around presence, specifically around issues of crisis response and what was happening with behavioral health on the system. Next slide, please. And so already we feel pretty excited about what we've already accomplished when it comes to training. All of our contracted security personnel have participated in de-escalation training. Our frontline operator staff and agency-wide, we are all working and participating. I think we're about 90% of the 3,000 of us have gone through microaggression training. We just completed a community RFP to invest in community-based trainings when it comes to supporting BIPOC riders, seniors, individuals with disabilities, community-informed training around trauma-informed care, and anti-racism training, things we've never really opened ourselves up to, but we're leveraging community expertise. And we're obviously very excited to leverage the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office and their wealth of training, far beyond sort of the training of a safety partner that we've had in the past. And so now I will hand it over to Andrew to talk about that partnership.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John. In addition to the really excellent work that we've done on Reimagine, we've also entered into a partnership with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. Appreciate Sheriff Reese being here, even on an election night. So thank you, sir. The partnership has been really excellent. Also want to recognize our transit chief, Brent Lejeune, in the back. He's a captain with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and he's here with us today as well. And as John alluded to, on April 1st of 2021, we entered into a new intergovernmental agreement, a 5-year, with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, who's taken over the lead position for our Transit Police Department. Really excited about that partnership. Since moving into the leadership role, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office has been focused on building relationships and collaboration through the transit system. As positive relationships are built and everyone has shared awareness of all services and resources on the system, there's an opportunity to more effectively collaborate and decrease any overlap of services, as well as fill gaps that are recognized. Just recently, we had an agency luncheon, which Sheriff Reese was a part of, where we were able to build and really model that collaboration by getting the area chiefs back together, talking about the good work that the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department has done with TriMet in transit and just in the community, and really taking a lead role for discussions on how we can approach policing differently and collaboratively inside the community. So we've really appreciated that relationship. And TriMet Safety and Security, the transit police, work in a collaborative effort with safety and security officers to address disruptive behavior on the system. One of the things I want to kind of bring up with you guys today is one of our more innovative approaches, which is our safety response team. John alluded this earlier with a sort of unarmed staff providing presence and outreach on our system. The safety response team is an example of an innovative model that focuses on outreach, not security. Their goal is to connect people to resources inside the community. And our community has been placing a large burden on law enforcement agencies, asking TPD to respond to all calls that may not necessarily need a police presence. It's not the right approach, obviously. So this is one of the added resources on the system to add to the transit policing work. We're really proud of our SRT group. They're kind of expanding even into this summer. If you've ridden on transit, you might have interacted with some of them already. But they provide connectivity to resources around the community and provide a presence at the same time, too. So I think we're going to go on to the participating agencies at this point. So we have 6 participating agencies at this point, with, again, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office being in the lead position. So our Transit Police Department is comprised of law enforcement from the agencies listed And what they do is do an integrated network of, or provide transit security and policing for an integrated network of buses, light rail, and commuter trains, and Lyft paratransit, as well as resources for those who carpool, vanpool, walk, bike, and in the Multnomah County, Washington, and Clackamas County area. Transit Police is dedicated to engaging with the communities it serves. All of the participating agency partners provide support to the Transit Police Division and assist in providing a safe and accessible transit system to our community members and visitors. And that's all of our community members and visitors. So next slide, please. One of the things that we've really done, and as John alluded to earlier, we actually did just have a reimagined public safety meeting with some of our partners, and we've really encouraged ride-alongs and opportunities for members of the community to actually spend time with different members of our safety security team, including Transit Police. We've already had 6 reimagined committee members participate on those ride-alongs, and if any of you or any of your community members were interested, we would certainly love to sync you in with opportunities to do ride-alongs either with our safety response team or at the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department. I've done a couple now, and just I'm always amazed with the professionalism of our Multnomah County Sheriff's Office deputies. So, next slide, please. And this is the last slide where we want to open it up for questions. But I just want to say, overall, we're very, very positive on where we're at with the reimagined public safety initiatives and the committee that we're working with. Very proud of the current partnership with the Multnomah County and other regional policing agencies supporting TriMet and our riders across the 3-county area transit that we do. So, and with that, we're done with our presentation. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you. So everybody is in a little bit of a rush tonight, but we did just want to give you all a chance to ask any questions that you had. I did want to just call out the appreciation I had for Andrew in particular for the partnership over the last couple of weeks as we've been trying to figure out the IGA and just make sure that it actually works for both agencies. So it's been lovely. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question for Luke, but I don't know that I have a question for these guys.
Look at this amazing chair right here.
Yeah, I just want to commend that you're reaching out to the community and working with all those community partners. Because I know the last time you came up, I asked some questions about what are folks of color saying, and they wanted armed police. I mean, it's been a hard 2 years, right? And it's not easy being a uniformed officer, and I understand that. It's also not easy being Black in America. But most of the folks, if I'm not wrong, who use TriMet are folks of color, right? Depending on, we're still in Oregon.
Right. So I would say, we're much more diverse than the communities we serve with our ridership. But our whether it's income, it's pretty balanced. But yeah, we're probably about 48% people of color in the system.
And so for that, I want those folks to feel safe. And if that means they feel safe with an armed officer on a train or a bus or whatever, that's what they need. Right. And I just want to commend that, reaching out to all these organizations and really reimagining what it looks like to operate safety on public transportation. I wish we would have rethought education during COVID, because that would have been really nice too. But I digress. But I've never heard a bad thing about Multnomah County Sheriffs. I know Luke and Milwaukie PD are very good, and I'm happy that people will feel safe, especially after you look at what happened in Buffalo, right? We need to make sure that people are safe, and if that means having an armed officer, I'm all for it, because I don't want to see any more loss of life. So thank you.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I wanted to ask Luke, we've been told that our officers like this opportunity, and could you just speak to a little bit of why?
Sure, that's a great question. We're a relatively small agency for this area. We have 33 sworn officers. Our specialty positions include detectives, one K-9 handler, one SRO, one or sometimes two traffic officers. And there's not a lot of fluff in our programming. We pulled a specialty position back from an interagency drug team at a point when our own detective division was just frankly about to grind to a halt from the workload and pressure. So that was a specialty position that was optional. It didn't change our budget at all, but we pulled it back internally. So TriMet is one of those programs that provides another specialty position to an otherwise small agency, which is funded by TriMet. So it provides opportunities not at our own expense. And it does allow them to spend some time in other areas and experience some change of pace, some different challenges, work with other agencies. And there's opportunities there to learn and then bring some additional knowledge and kind of a refresh mindset back to the city when they do come back. These are rotational positions, so they don't go there permanently and never come back. So it is an opportunity internally for agencies our size when you don't have unlimited opportunities. And part of our sort of comp analysis is just competing with the other agencies around us. It's very difficult to both attract and retain the best people if we don't offer the best possible features. And specialty positions is a big part of that, unfortunately, and we're limited in what we can do. So it's just a great opportunity for us internally.
And how long is the rotation, or is it flexible and you just kind of decided on a case-by-case basis? Does the IGA dictate the length of
in the current IGA, I believe it talks about a 3-year minimum rotation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And, oh man, I had another question. It just evaporated. So the IGA kind of talks about one, but I know we had two before, so that we have the flexibility if we can hire up to have it be two, or?
The IGA is written so that we can basically assess what we're able to do and what TriMet is interested in each year, essentially. So the language in the IGA would allow for more than one. We have had up to 3, 1 sergeant and 2 officers in the past. And that has changed as our staffing. That requires that we be overhired by 3, essentially funded by TriMet. But there are times when staffing dips and maybe we had to pull somebody back. And TriMet has always worked with us on that, kind of a staffing adjustment if it was necessary.
Okay.
We try to keep these agreements somewhat flexible in the sense of it's a relationship, and so we try to support one another. It really helps to have other agencies like Milwaukie involved in our transit as well for us. But we do offer lots of different specialty type opportunities, and we really lean into that to try to help develop the agencies. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office gives us an opportunity to do that too, because what they're bringing to the table is really innovative and really good for our community. So
I know that we limited their time a little bit this evening just to kind of stay on track and on schedule. But I've been very impressed with the work specifically that TriMet and John Gardner has done in the presentations they've given over the past year or two. And I know they took a very authentic look at the way these services were delivered and the best way to do it. And I know there was a lot of authentic engagement with the community out there to ensure that we collectively are providing those services in the best way possible and reevaluating how we're doing that. So my sense from the outside looking in was that was a very authentic and probably labor-intensive process, and I appreciate the work that TriMet and John have done and the information they've presented in the past.
I have one more question. So when you talked about having the team that doesn't, like, officers aren't trained mental health folks, and having that team, have they been in place already, or will they come in to place?
And it's a great question. What's interesting, especially as the community has changed from sort of an anti-police sentiment back in 2020 to, well, we need some level of public safety, is even with this great addition, if we're able to add Milwaukie to the team, transit police is the smallest portion of our safety staff, and it's a group of a lot of other folks, whether it's contracted security or our customer service officers, and now the safety response team, which I think is around 24, and we're looking to grow that. Yeah, they're very much more mental health first aid approach. They are not behavioral health counselors, although we're still looking at more ways to partner with more of those certified crisis response or street response things, but they're that interim place, right? So where we can de-escalate or engage folks who, but for that engagement, might level up to need the police. And so we had them, we're actually presenting just around that safety response team to another community organization, because they're so interested in, like, how are these folks actually engaging and connecting people to social services, literally providing blankets and food and socks to folks.
Yeah.
And it is very different than anything else we've ever done, but that's kind of what Andrew and his team have brought to the conversation, and based on what the community wanted to see, which was a balanced approach. And we just, we just first started with Multnomah County and their umbrella culture and approach, and now bringing on community police partners, because that's the other thing. A 3-year rotation allows you to really meet the people on the transit routes, because the same 1,000 people are probably taking the Orange Line or the
It's
bus.
relationship building.
Oh, it's so much.
It's all relationship building.
And they're embedded, and they just know the community. So this safety response team gets to integrate with that as well. And so you'll see these groups of 3 or 4 individuals on the Orange Line, on the bus lines in this community, and really understanding what your community needs, which won't be so different than what Beaverton needs, but it'll be different enough that it's helpful to have that different approach.
Yeah. I think it's cool.
It's very
I wish it would, like, for lack of a better term, blow up, get bigger. And it would just be everywhere. Instead of calling police when someone's having mental health crisis or addiction, we call them instead of officers. It would be amazing.
It would, and I think it should be a goal. I mean, the state as a whole ranks very poorly on mental health care, and I think opportunities like this to create leadership and example of how we could do it very differently is something that I think we can take, and then hopefully at the state level start to fund more of that and encourage more of it.
You are seeing certain elements of that out in the community with Portland Street Response and others sort of going the same direction.
Right, Cahoots down in Eugene and
Yeah, at Cahoots, absolutely. So it's good to see, but we're certainly proud of our safety response team.
yeah, very good. Anything else? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution acting as the local contract review board, authorizing the city manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and the Milwaukie Police Department for transit police services.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution acting as the local contract review board, authorizing the city manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and the Milwaukie Police Department for transit police services. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Sure. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks for the name tag.
Thank you.
Oh, we're not up.
Now we're on air. All right, our next item tonight is a wastewater system development charge revision resolution. Public hearing on the revisions to the wastewater system charges is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comment, deliberate, and consider adopting changes to the city's wastewater STCs. Does any council member wish to announce actual or potential conflict of interest?
No.
No.
Nor do I. Staff report will be presented by our Public Works Director, Peter Pastorelli, and Doug Gabbard.
Thank you, Mayor Gamba. I'm Peter Pastorelli, the Public Works Director. With me tonight here in person is Doug Gabbard from the FCS Group, and online is John Girlarducci, also from the FCS Group. They both worked on our SDC methodology and update to the rates. As you recall, they were last here in early part of January, gave council an update on the methodology, got some feedback from the council, and then we went through the public noticing process, providing a 90-day notice to the public and interested stakeholders, and then posted some information, the report, the draft report, online and here at City Hall as well, to see if we got any feedback. And Doug's here tonight to walk you through a presentation.
First class. All right, gotta make sure people on Zoom can see it, so we gotta go.
No?
You're quite all right. Share. Maybe like this. And now you can see them, and then hit the arrow button.
Wonderful, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I am Doug Gabbard. I am from FCS Group, and I am joined in the ether of Zoom with John Girlarducci, the project principal on this project. He may be chiming in from time to time. Our agenda tonight is to begin with some background on SDCs, just to remind you of things you probably don't need to be reminded of, but maybe someone in the larger audience does, about the basics of SDCs. Then we'll go into the math and talk about the SDC calculations that we have for you tonight, and then we'll show you where you stand with other relevant jurisdictions. So let's begin with some background. SDCs are one-time charges. No one gets a monthly bill for SDCs. They are charged at the time of development or redevelopment if intensification has occurred. There are 5 different services you can charge SDCs for: water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation, and parks. Different states, different rules. Those are Oregon's. SDCs are for capital only, both in the way they're calculated and in the ways they may be spent. They can include, and they do include, in your case, both existing components and future planned components, and we'll talk more about that later. SDCs should be construed as a slice of the whole system, and so they are not to finance particular projects that your development might benefit from. It's not something like an LID. You are buying into the system as a whole. ORS Chapter 223 governs the imposition of SDCs. There is some pretty specific language, and you can get in trouble if you don't follow it, and that's usually why you hire a consultant to help you with that. We know the law pretty well. So in schematic form, the math of an SDC calculation breaks a total SDC down into 2 possible components, and both of these components are relevant to you in this case. The first is a reimbursement fee, where you look at your existing infrastructure, you determine how much of that infrastructure has capacity that is available for future users, and then you divide that eligible cost by the future users that you expect it to serve, and that division gives you a reimbursement fee. The improvement fee is where you're looking at your project list, and you look at that project list at each individual project, and you determine the extent to which each of those projects can serve future users. And those eligible costs are then gathered together in the numerator. You divide it by that same growth and demand that you had in the reimbursement fee, And after you do that division, you have an improvement fee. Add up the reimbursement fee and the improvement fee, and you have an SDC. So we begin our journey with where Milwaukie is currently at. And it's good to remember that Milwaukee's city SDC, which is for collection, is just a small part of what a developer would experience as their total sewer SDC, most of that coming for treatment from WES. So $1,269 is what we currently have on the record for the collection SDC, $8,120 for treatment, leading to a total of $9,389 for a single family residence, which is kind of the lingua franca of comparisons. Everything is usually compared to single family residences. So let's get into the math. So the growth that will serve as the denominator for all of our calculations. This data comes from the master plan, and I'm gonna be shooting you references to our report, which I believe has been distributed to you. If you want more details on growth, you can find that in pages 4 and 5 of our report. But more importantly, you will see in the notes there, we have actual references to the master plan tables where these numbers come from. So there's just no mystery about where everything comes from. The master plan provides not only the current and estimated dry weather flow, but also the flow per EDU. So we can quantify everything in EDUs, which stands for equivalent dwelling unit. That's kind of the base unit of the math. So we know that you have about 14,100 EDUs now. In the future, you will have 17,451, which means that you will be growing during the forecast period by 3,352 EDUs.
So I noticed in your report, if I was reading it right, and it seems consistent with what you're saying, that you calculated EDUs by dividing that total number by the 115.
That's right. The total flow, which is the top number, by the gallons per day per EDU, and that gives you the implied number of EDUs.
But shouldn't we know the number of EDUs from our billing?
Oh.
Why do we need to do that seems the backwards math to me, I guess, is what.
Well, that would work for 2020, but it wouldn't necessarily work for 2040.
Oh, well, sure.
So to keep things consistent, we use the master plan. Now, but you're making a good point. If you were to come back and tell me that, we're not too far from 2020 and our EDUs is not 14,000, it's more like 1,400, that would alarm me, and we would have to sharpen our pencils and go back and do some math over again.
Okay. We said it's 17,000.
We would want to do some more research on that.
Okay.
But the EDUs that were billed by WES doesn't necessarily use the same flow number to calculate the EDU. So there's some differences there within that EDU from WES as well.
Okay.
So the 115 number was a number that the consultant, WSC, derived during the master planning process, looking at our flow monitoring and consumption and demand of in terms of water. So.
And if I realize, multifamily kind of throws a wrench in the works because we're not billing them individually typically. But we still probably know how many units at a given apartment complex or whatever. So could we come up from our billing side with an actual number of EDUs?
You're not measuring the flow. So you would not have a flow-based EDU count. You would have a billing EDU count, which is not going to necessarily reconcile completely.
Don't we figure out our sewage flow by taking our wintertime water usage?
That's an estimate, but yes. But we don't, what I'm getting at is you don't meter the flow the way you would with water. With water, there would be no guessing.
The other thing I would mention too that we saw as we went through our master planning effort, both on the wastewater and the water side, is we've seen a reduction in water usage in a household, with more efficient water fixtures, people, being just, better stewards of that resource. So, if you went back the last time we did our master plan in 2010, I think, the number that we were using, sort of that per capita number was like 135 gallons per person per day or something like that.
Okay, I'm taking us off track, but I just was curious about
I appreciate the question. So now we've got our denominator nailed down. Now we start looking at the numerators, and we're going to start with the improvement fee. So what you're looking at here is the set of projects from your master plan that we examined for inclusion in the improvement fee. The total project cost is in that first white column, totaling up to just under $22 million. So in the next column is the percentage eligibility. And you will notice a whole bunch of zeros in that column, indicating that the particular project in the view of your consulting engineer does not add capacity to the system. Now, we can, it can be helpful to explain that it's a pretty strict definition. You can replace a pipe that conveys the same amount of sewage, and it will last, 50 years longer than the first one did. Well, extending life is not the same thing as adding capacity. And so it can be kind of a harsh standard to meet. But we collaborated with your engineer, and the process is we make sure the engineer understands the legal standard of capacity adding eligibility. And then the engineer takes that criterion and does an engineering analysis of the projects to determine the extent to which each one of them is eligible. And what we ended up with in that process is a cost basis of about $1.2 million. The bad news of that is that this does not lead to a very high improvement fee. The good news that we'll get to, and I'll steal some of my own thunder here, is the message behind this is that your current system is largely adequate, not just for now, but for the forecast period, and I'm going to show you how that's going to help you. So now we turn to the reimbursement fee cost basis. This is where we acknowledge that your system is largely adequate right now. So we have a total cost of your pipe system about $17 million. We know that there is some outstanding principal just shy of $1 million. And so we net out that outstanding principal, which leaves us with a net cost of about $15 million. We apply what we call the growth share, which is the portion of your future population base that will be new, that's arriving after today, essentially. And you multiply by that net figure, and your reimbursable cost is a little over $3 million. So that represents the portion of your existing infrastructure that you can legally ask development to buy into because it provides adequate capacity for that future development. And so we're going to make sure we do that.
So the 19% number is coming from PSU population estimates?
It's coming from I don't think you'll see that number in the master plan, but it is derived from that master plan. Okay. And you'll notice 19.21 in the far right column. It is calculated as, so looking at the implied EDUs on the third row there, if you take the 3352 of growth and divide that by the 17,451, the future population, or the future EDUs, that fraction is 19.21%. So it's the percent of your customer base that will be new.
Okay,
You get
but you're
charged.
calculating it not from anybody's population statistics. You're calculating it from a number of assumed flow.
That's right, projected
Projected flow.
which is even better, because it's not, because the projection of future flow, population factors into it, but there are other considerations that your engineer looked at. And so this is a far better way of estimating this number than looking at a population estimate. So this looks at your entire demand on the sewer system, which some of it's from population, some of it's from businesses, and there may not be the same characteristics of flow in the future. So this really is the gold standard approach.
So that number, that 2,006,000 number came from the master plan?
Yes.
The engineers who did the master plan?
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
So we're going to put that reimbursable cost into your cost basis. And now we're going to make a couple of adjustments. And the adjustments that you see here are just for fund balance. Existing fund balance gets deducted from the cost basis because that's sort of pre-collected SDCs. You don't need to collect them again. So that has an impact. And then, and so now you have a net cost basis for your improvement fee of just under $450,000. You're still well north of $3 million for the reimbursement fee, and this thing called compliance costs. So the law specifically allows you to capture and spend costs related to managing SDCs in the legally required way. And so the number that we put in there is essentially the cost of doing SDC methodologies every 5 years for the forecast period. The forecast period is 20 years, so you'll be doing it about 4 times. And that's what the $73,000 is. SDC methodologies are specifically called out in the law as an allowable cost. So your total cost basis is just shy of $3.6 million. We're going to divide by those EDUs, which leads to a total SDC per EDU of $1,065. But notice that we have provided you the components of that by improvement fee and reimbursement fee and compliance fee. And that's important because we want you to keep track of those separate revenue streams, and we want you to keep track of those different fund balances. And the reason is, when you get improvement fee dollars, you can spend them only on the projects on this list and only to the extent that you have dollars in the right-hand column. But you get reimbursement fee money, you can spend that on any of these projects in any amount. So reimbursement fees are highly flexible, but you have to know how much you have, and so you have to account for them separately. Okay. So now we get to the good part.
So our total number has come down. The 1065
Slightly,
is less
yes,
than what
that's
what we are currently charging.
That's right.
Okay.
So I'm now going to show you 2 SDC schedules. The first one here reflects current practice. So the EDUs in that first white column should look pretty familiar from your existing fee schedule, and we've just plugged in the new amount that was calculated per EDU. So all of that should look pretty familiar. We added in that a per fixture unit count, just so you have that as a reference. An EDU is basically 16 fixture units, which if we did the flow thing of 115 gallons per day, that works out to about 7.2 gallons per day per fixture unit. I don't know if that's interesting to you, but it was interesting to me. Okay, this is the good part. You asked, I believe, someone asked, to have a scaled SDC. And the best recommendation that we can make, and by the way, this is becoming much more popular. And so we were ready for this. The best recommendation we can make for you is to adopt the approach that Wes, at last I checked, is thinking about adopting. I don't think they've pulled the trigger yet, but you may know more than I do.
Well, I was wondering that when I read this report, because I guess I thought they had.
They have not yet.
They have not.
The committee had made their recommendation. I don't think the commission has actually managed to take a vote on it.
That is correct. I had actually talked to Greg several weeks ago about that because I had at one point thought the same, that they had adopted it, but they hadn't.
Because they're going into budget too. They should be adopting these things and getting them. So, oh, well.
So what you see here on the EDUs scaled by square footage, this applies only to single family residences, which is the way most folks are doing it, who are doing it this way. So the EDU counts match the West proposal. And so we just then multiply that by the calculated per EDU. So for between $1,800 and $2,999, you have one EDU, which is the $1,065, and everything is scaled from there. This is a reasonable approach. And we know that Wes has looked at a lot of data to come up with this, and so we think we have not independently verified the data that they looked at when they studied this, but it is reasonable. It is a reasonable approach, and a lot of our clients are going this direction in at least one of their SDCs. It seems we're getting a lot of this in parks right now, but it's spreading to others as well.
So you mentioned that this was single family homes, but you know, we and all your other Oregon clients are, you know, starting to have, are expecting to see more duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes.
Oh, yes.
So would this be also the rate for those? If you build a triplex, you would figure out where they fall on here and where each of the 3 units falls on here?
So unless you decided something different, the default assumption would be that duplexes and larger would fit under the multifamily rubric. And so that you would take the number of plexes and you would multiply that by the 0.8 EDU. So a triplex is 3 times 0.8.
Why do that rather than the square footage per unit?
The square footage per unit was designed to be applicable to single family residences.
Right, but so a triplex is 3 single family residences.
Yes, if you have that data, you could apply it that way.
So if we know what the finished square foot of each of those units was going to be, we could apply it that way.
You could.
Well, because that ties into another question I had, which was, although now it feels like a different question since you were treating those as multifamily. I was thinking multifamily as, in our code, it's 5 or more units.
Really?
Well, in our zoning housing code, I believe that's where we draw the line now after this new code. So
interesting.
So I think of it as apartment buildings, I guess, typically. Okay. And so I was wondering why we would have more for an apartment size unit than we do for an ADU or a smallish single family home.
So the mayor is absolutely correct that if you know the square footage for each unit, then this can be applied to that.
Is there any advantage to just having this multifamily line item that has no necessary relevance in square footage or number of fixtures or anything else, right? You could have the luxury apartments that are up on the hill over there that are, you know, some of them are 2,000 square feet, 2 bathrooms, 3 bathrooms, whatever, clear down to some of what we hope will be built, which is, you know, triplexes with 3 800 square foot units. Does it does it maybe make sense to just not even do multifamily and just charge on a per square foot per unit basis? Is that somehow worse?
Well, I think we could do that. I think the multifamily line item is for sort of that ease of calculation for, for the engineering team when they're calculating what that SDC is going to be, as opposed to, calculating 73 different SDCs and summing them all up. It's not something that's impossible, but it's just sort of that ease of calculation.
I think it would be unusual for somebody to build an apartment complex and have 73 different square footages in it. They typically are pretty cookie cuttery. I mean, they might have, 3 different kinds of units. They might have
A studio, one bedroom, a two bedroom. Yeah.
and
I mean, they could have different floor plans that are slightly different, but
they're going to fall within that range.
Yeah.
Right?
I would think.
Yeah, you could absolutely apply the square footages.
To me, that would continue to go where we're trying to go, right? Which is to make it so that smaller units by rote are less expensive to build. So that they then are theoretically, we all know that the market actually controls the prices, not what it costs to build it. But theoretically, then they could be less expensive to rent or to purchase in a condominium situation.
So yes, and we provided the link on here. You probably don't need this, but so that you can keep tabs on where this is going, since it has not been adopted quite yet. But feel this is a valid approach, independent of what West finally does. But if they do pull the trigger on this, you will have the advantage of having a consistent system. And so that might be easier on your development.
Those are their size parameters.
Oh, yes.
For their tiers.
We ruthlessly stole that from them.
Okay.
Some legal plagiarism.
And did we also use their percentages?
What do you mean by percentages?
Well, so if you're saying that we used their size scales, right?
Oh, yes, and the EDUs.
Okay, that's my question.
Yes, absolutely.
Which will make it a lot easier on sewer, since we're going to have to translate. So maybe that's probably the best argument for leaving multifamily alone, because it would then be 2 different calculations.
So Wes is going to treat duplexes as multifamily. I never thought about that before.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You want to dig into the guts of the policy before you decide that for sure. So what they have is a listing for multifamily, but the precise definition, because I've seen this in different cities, sometimes multifamily means anything more than 1 unit. I've sometimes seen it defined as anything more than a duplex. So
too bad Angel's not here.
Well, I mean, there is a consistency there, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be consistent with every tier, right? So if
you have no obligation to be.
So if West decides that they are going to treat duplexes as multifamily, it doesn't mean that we necessarily would have to, right?
That is right. That's absolutely right. So this is designed to be consistent for convenience, for administrative ease, but you can do whatever you want to do within the law.
Right, but ours is what? 20%?
It's a small slice.
SCC?
20% of.
The total sewer SCC.
Oh, the total sewer. Yeah, it's less than that probably. Yeah, especially now because it's going down.
Doing some on-the-fly math. I love it. So this is the anticlimactic ending, where, as you know, holding the West slice constant, your SDC does come down a little bit. But not changing your relative position among these jurisdictions. So it doesn't matter from a competitive perspective, although always ask cities not to
Interesting
think
that
about
all
it that way.
the more expensive ones are,
Well, it's not surprising that Gladstone's is what it is.
why?
Well, because Gladstone hasn't touched their system in 100 years.
Well, okay, but it's interesting. I guess West Lynn
Westland's a little surprising.
is served by Wes.
Yeah.
So those are all Wes customers at the top, the most expensive.
Yeah.
They're charging a lot more than us for their piece of the,
Right.
yeah, interesting.
That is interesting, particularly since, by my understanding, Gresham has the most advanced system out there.
Treatment system.
Yeah. Huh. But it is SDC, so it's looking future rather than,
So that's what I got for you.
cool. Thank you. SDCs are always fascinating.
Yeah. Thank you.
He probably doesn't hear that very.
No, I do not. Sorry.
So that does beg, so you're saying then, Peter, that it doesn't really matter what Wes ends up passing, we can do this, and it's just a slightly more calculated computation when a project comes up.
Yeah, we can set our STCs as long as they're legally compliant with the law, right?
That's right.
And yeah, I think the piece is that burden on calculating that SDC for a multifamily unit. So, depending on the size of that, it's a lot simpler if you say, okay, we've got 20 units and we're going to charge that 0.8, and that's what that fee is, as opposed to going through and
10 units at this and
10 units at
10
that,
units
yeah.
at that.
So there's a little bit more effort there on our part to calculate that.
15 minutes more effort, right? I mean, assuming the client has their act together and they can tell you what the square footage is.
And it could be, it might also be difficult as we project out our SDC revenues out into the future, where we might not necessarily have a good sense of what that developer is going to do in terms of sizing those units. So, for example, we project out, 2 to 3 years on as we're doing our capital planning to see what we're expecting for reimbursement SDCs and how we're going to use that. And Steve's got a spreadsheet that has gone through, and he says, okay, there's 15 units at this place in 2025, but doesn't necessarily have, the full details on the size. So you'll probably see some fluctuations on those projections there.
So just sort of thinking through this concept of dropping multifamily, how then is our common areas calculated? So if, for example, at Waverly, for example, they have community rooms that have kitchens and bathrooms, right? So they're not that there's a ton of use probably, but how does that then get calculated into the system? Either way, whether we're doing it as this is a multifamily unit, there's 20 apartments, and there's this community room, or there's this gym, or there's this whatever that have toilets, that have things.
So let me give you two good options. Option one is you kind of do it the way we do cost allocation, and that is you allocate it in proportion to the unit sizes. So you have a two unit development. One unit is 1,000 square feet. The other unit is 500 square feet. Whatever the common area is, 2/3 of that goes to the larger unit, 1/3 of that goes to the smaller unit. So that's one way to do it. The second good option I can give you is you could say, yeah, having a multifamily rate makes more sense now. So that is one of the questions you get to avoid if you have a set multifamily rate.
But again, we would still need to establish a definition of what is multifamily.
Oh, sure.
Because again, I would never in a million years consider a duplex a multifamily unit. I mean, it technically kind of is, but so is
That's fair.
a house and an ADU.
Yeah. Oh, that's totally fair. It's just once you know that you're past the threshold, then it's just a matter of counting units. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to set that policy.
So Vera, since you're sitting here, what is Lisa remembering right? Because I can't remember either. Where we draw the line at multifamily and where is missing middle?
5 units and up is multifamily? In one building. In one building. Okay, well, right, okay.
So a complex of a bunch of townhomes, if all the buildings are only 4 units, then it's still not multifamily, even though it's 30 townhomes in a complex.
Oh, that's interesting, okay. This is kind of making my head swim. I'm not sure what.
I mean, there's other spaces, like those common areas, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but, so the unit, there's a charge for each of the dwelling units, but those other non-residential components are based off of fixture counts.
So this is an advantage of your current system, which is fixture unit based. It's a really precise way of dealing with, especially non-residential.
Well, but then that's not how it, because we were charging, I mean, a typical ADU has 1 toilet, 1 sink, sometimes 2.
Well, yeah, it would have a kitchen and a bath sink.
Sure, okay, so 1 toilet, 2 sinks.
Yeah, I was referring to non-residential. Because for residential, you're right, your current system kind of averages out
Right,
the
and so
single family.
the small buildings get hammered and
Yes.
big buildings.
That's right. That's right.
So that was my other question, is this is all about residential. So for non-residential, for commercial, we actually count how many sinks and toilets and showers.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, that's not hard for a little downtown shop, but that's kind of a big deal at Precision Cast Parts, or somebody builds a big plant or something. Okay. Interesting.
Well, I got to think industrial has some, because there's going to be industrial processes where there's no sink or toilet, but there's some bloody big drains draining all kinds of.
And this is where you can be glad that you're just worried about the collection side of it, because everything, all that matters to you is flow.
Right.
And a lot of the real difficult work we've been doing with some clients is on the strength side. And we've developed some different customer classes based upon strength and building off of what has gone on in Bend, for example, when they've got all the breweries and they're trying to figure out how to deal with them. But you don't have to worry about any of that. It's all about flow here.
Right. Well, so how are we feeling about this multifamily question?
You want my opinion?
I do.
I think you're getting way too far into the weeds with this question. I think a lot of, in my opinion, I'm guessing what they showed was, can you go back another one? Yeah. To that, that's just there to help guide them. And then it can change based on what we decide or what it is as a multifamily.
This is us deciding at this point.
This is our hearing.
We're deciding right now.
This is not the work session. This is actually the hearing where we're going to have to figure that out. So basically, the reason I'm asking is, are there other questions that we need to ask staff before we go into deliberation so that we can have deliberation that makes sense? I should have been more clear.
So I just want to point out, I do think that over the last year, we've actually had several conversations when Councilor Faulkner was on the dais, and I do think that she put an incredible amount of time into the West design and process.
She also wasn't happy with it.
She wasn't. It wasn't perfect, but it was a heck of a lot faster, further along. And so if we're going to go now and repeat it, it's going to take substantial more work to go back with our consultants and start redesigning this. So that is my one concern.
Well, I don't think anybody's proposing changing the tiers. The questions are, what are we doing with duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes? And then what are we doing with apartments?
Like what's the definition of multifamily? Is it literally more than one? As far as this is
I
concerned?
think we have one,
We do, but
right?
we have our missing middle one, but then, then all the missing middle ones would then be calculated on a per unit basis based on their square feet, right? Unless it goes into an actual multifamily, more than 5 units in a building, then we're using the square footage thing. That's what we're trying to make sure is super clear in this moment.
No, and I think that's fair. I do think that one of the discussions we've had over the years is the amount, and I'm going to look to Peter, honestly, because he's going to have a better answer than I am on this. But that you're also looking at how much impact there is on the system. And I'm not sure that being in a 3-plex or a 4-plex is all that different than a individual unit that's 500 square feet.
Right. Agreed, but the assumption with this is that everything over 1 unit is a multifamily unit.
It's only paying 80 cents, so you could have,
Someone said,
you could have
0.8%. Yeah.
So we didn't define multifamily.
Right, this is what I'm attempting to do.
We did
because
not define it in here, but it's what we've, it's sort of that common tier, right?
We know, but that's
So you're just
coming
trying to
from the
come up
day
with a
when there was more clarity, right? We had single family homes and we had apartments. And that was pretty much it. Now we've got this missing middle that creates a spectrum.
what would be your definition under the code for for the multifamily?
The zoning code defines multifamily as a structure.
Can you come to sorry, you have to talk.
Sorry. The zoning code defines multifamily as a structure with 5 or more dwelling units in it. And one thing when we're talking about what is multifamily, we have duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes that can be attached or detached. So if you had a site that had a detached quadplex, are those SDCs based on, those would be the square footage SDCs, presumably, right? So, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to make sure that
Right.
we're all clear on that dividing line.
Right, and, yeah, so, and, we're seeing draft concept drawings of, quads and cottage clusters and all these of varying square footages for units. So they're all over the map because of the size of the lots, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So typically, would a duplex or triplex be considered multifamily when doing SDCs? But, right, yeah.
Well, I think that's how in the past, we've considered it, right? That's how we have, but I think there's the opportunity to drop that tier and just calculate based off of the square footage. We have that, we've gone through that methodology, so.
I guess what bothers me about this one is, we've done this great parsing out for single family, and I don't want to revisit that, and I certainly hope that the county's going to adopt it. I'm a little concerned that was March 2021, so that's been
Over a year.
15 months, yeah. But the way this is written, if you have a group of 1,500 square foot townhomes, and they're in,
It can only be four units per, according to our code.
so there are only 4 units per, and that we wouldn't call that multifamily under our housing code, but under this, as written, we would, and that 1,500 square foot townhome would be paying the same SDC as a 400 foot studio apartment in an apartment building.
So I have another question to add into this, just to try and understand where we're going. So one of the reasons I keep going back to Vera is that when we have a developer come in, they get real confused. If we start coming from different component, like different definitions of who they are. So I guess my question is, if you have 4 units, and let's say they were all 500 units or 500 square feet, are you comfortable with those 4 units all coming under that? I guess I'm asking, would you be open to adopting a similar definition as to what's in our land use code right now?
I am. That's where I'm headed with this, but I don't think that's where the STCs used to be. That's why I wanted to make some clarity right now.
Totally. I'm just trying to get to the juncture point. Like, if you all are comfortable applying those definitions, I think Vera coming up and just making sure everybody's clear about what those are, making sure that fits, and I'm looking to our expert. If we define it that way, does that cause any problems in the calculation?
No, ma'am, not at all. And I want to give full disclosure here that we have a multifamily line item on this fee schedule at 0.8 EDUs because that matches the proposed WES schedule. I could not tell you at this moment what WES has in mind for what the definition of multifamily is. We've matched the form of the fee schedule. So they may have a certain definition, but it is not at all binding on you unless you want it to be.
So it sounds like 2 things. One, we can make the decision. It also sounds like we should probably inform Wes and have this conversation with at Wes, because they're going to be having to build or allow quadplexes and all the things in unincorporated as well. So they
need to be thinking about this question.
Which might be why they've stalled. It could be.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any more questions of staff? I should probably read my dang thing. Hang on.
I mean, it doesn't sound like we're going to finish this tonight.
Are we?
Well, we have the ability to.
We do?
Sure.
Okay.
We
We have to rewrite definitions of what multifamily means.
We would probably need to insert a definition, wouldn't we?
Or as another alternative is remove the multifamily and just charge based off of square
Charge
footage.
everything off base square foot.
You could absolutely do that. You'll be introducing the problem of common area, as you've already pointed out, Mayor. But yeah, you could do that.
I mean, I don't want to get hung up on common area. That's such a small percentage of what we're talking about.
The other option is that portion of the customer base you could treat as you do now on fixture units, which is very precise.
Because it is a commercial development after all. Okay, that's easy. Well, so does that still, if we were to pass this tonight, can you make those tweaks post, or is it something that you would need to make before we passed it?
Well, I think what we've got in the resolution is based off of this table, and we would just say, we would remove the multifamily tier from table 7 in the report.
Then you don't need the definition.
Right.
No,
Exactly. That is.
The resolution, RS 115, refers to having Exhibit 1 to the resolution, which is, that's the report. Okay, the whole report is Exhibit 1. Okay, so it's not this table per se, but, okay. I don't know. I mean, this resolution points to this report. I mean, I think we'd have to take.
So at the bottom of RS 115, it says, in particular, the city's adopting the amount of the charges and the methodology used to set the amount of the charges included in Table 7 of Exhibit 1. So we would just remove that multifamily here from Table 7,
Okay.
right?
Cool. Yeah, you're quickly getting into city attorney territory here.
Yeah.
Of how you could adopt a resolution subject to an amendment. That's city attorney territory.
He is online, right? He's been online.
He is. Yeah, let me see if we can get him on.
Yes, I'm here.
Any issues with us just removing the line multifamily and stating that in the
Motion.
motion?
On the resolution, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
I mean, worst case scenario, we do it again next
Yeah,
meeting.
exactly. So we can
let's just do
try.
it. Let's just do it. And
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
okay, cool. Have we received any additional correspondence on the topic?
No.
Fascinating. All right. Right? 'Cause,
Fascinating that no one's written us about.
well, the home builders are notorious
Well, that's
for
true.
having an issue with us.
But we were going down, so nobody's going to complain. We're going down.
True. All right. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed wastewater SDC changes?
No, I'm just a confused member of the public who came to see how you guys do your work and try to get some clarity.
And I see no comment cards, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Then I will not read the whole paragraph on, unless you've got anything, nothing online, anybody?
Double check. No hand raised, no emails.
All right, I move to close the public comment part of the hearing on the proposed wastewater SDC charges.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public comment period of the wastewater SDC changes hearing. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve.
Wait, hang on. That was good, but hold on. The public comment part of the public hearing on the proposed wastewater SDC changes is closed. Is there any council discussion? Really? So in your motion, you have to talk about the removal of the multifamily line.
I move to approve the resolution taking out the line item of multifamily, establishing new system development charges for wastewater improvements as authorized by MMC Chapter 13.28.
I'll second.
It has been moved to approve the resolution establishing new system development charges, removing the multifamily line item
Table 7.
on Table 7 for wastewater improvements as authorized by MMC Chapter 13.28. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Well
good
done.
to see you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, so Councilor Heisey was not going to be able to make it tonight. She is going to actually be able to call in for this next discussion and for the next vote.
Oh.
So we are able to have a vote tonight.
Okay.
And we'll go from there, whatever the vote is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our next item then is the Middle Housing Land Division, Senate Bill 458, Code Changes and Ordinance. File number ZA-2022-001. Public hearing on the Middle Housing Land Division SB 458 Code Changes is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comment, deliberate, and consider adopting changes to the city's municipal code. Does any council member wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a conflict of interest, but I was not able to adequately prepare for this hearing. I just ran out of time to read all the stuff we had to read and to watch the Planning Commission hearing. So I am going to abstain from participating in this public hearing, and I'll go sit back there.
Okay.
Yep.
And Councilor Heisey has joined us online. Welcome, Councilor Heisey. All right. Vera,
All right.
it's all you.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here again. It's been a while. I'm here to present the proposed code amendments for Senate Bill 458, which is a follow-up to the House Bill 2001. Apologize for all the acronyms for everyone. The middle housing bill. Senate Bill 458 was adopted by the Oregon legislature in 2021, so this past summer. And the bill allows lot divisions specifically for middle housing developments to enable those units to be sold or owned individually. The bill allows for lot divisions of a parent lot. So you may hear me talking about a parent lot and the child lots. Parent lot is the original lot upon which the middle housing was built or would plan to be built. The point of the bill was in response to the concern that middle housing, if you had multiple units on a single lot, could only be owned if the entire property was under a condominium. And there are some issues with condominium law here in Oregon, as I understand it, or they would all be rentals. And it was really important for the Senate to allow for ownership opportunities for those units. So they created this bill that creates an expedited land division process specifically for middle housing. There's very specific language in the bill outlining what cities can and cannot ask for within this land division process, how much time we have to process a land division. But it doesn't just kind of tie our hands a little bit about what the community can ask for within this process, but it also adds some restrictions onto the land divisions themselves. So everybody kind of gives up something in order to allow for this to happen. I'll have a little more information here. So again, the requirements within the bill applies to all middle housing types. But again, back to townhomes are already on their own individual lots. That's the definition of a townhouse. So really the Senate Bill 458 kind of applies to all of the other types that you might not think about them being on their own individual lots. The bill stipulates very clearly that the land division must result in one dwelling unit per lot. So you couldn't do a duplex, on one lot and then a single over here. Every division has one dwelling unit on one lot. There have to be separate utilities for each dwelling, but these divisions can, of course, include easements. So for pedestrian access, common areas, driving and parking areas, utilities, those sorts of things. All of the units have to show that they comply with the building code, and that's important specifically important if you were applying a 458 land division to an attached duplex. So you could, in fact, create a lot line in between those two units, but you would have to show through the building code that you can in fact have a lot line in between those two units. So you've got firewall separation. There are other building code stipulations if you actually had a lot line with a building in the middle of it. But you could do it that way. So this doesn't apply just to detached units. It applies to attached units as well. And as I said, there is an expedited time frame for these divisions. We have 63 days within which to process one of these land divisions. So what we've done is proposed that within a type 2 land use review process with a 63-day time frame. So there is still public notice. It's still a land use application, but we've basically cut the time frame in half within which we have to process the application. There are some optional things that the Senate bill allows us to ask for. We cannot require street frontage improvements or right-of-way dedication for the child lots, but we can for the parent lot. And we do plan to do that like we would for any land division or partition here. We are requiring that the land division goes through our typical preliminary plat and final plat process to keep that as a consistent process for the actual platting piece of it. And we are requiring the final plat be completed before the building permits are submitted. There is the case certainly where someone could build a detached quadplex and then come in a year later and do the 458 land division after the fact. That can happen as well. So this doesn't necessarily have to be for all new construction. They could come in after the fact and do that, but they would still have to follow and have to show all of the, that they meet all of the requirements and approval requirements of the Senate bill.
Council President Heisey has been on for the last 5 minutes.
Okay. This is a brief list of some of the things that the Senate bill says that we cannot require, which is a little bit different from what we would normally require within our code. We cannot require street frontage for each of the new lots. We can't require parking or a driveway to each of the new lots. So that kind of goes to that shared parking area and easements idea. We cannot require minimum lot size, dimensions, lot coverage on the child lots, but we can for the parent lot. So any individual, child lot could, the lot lines could be really tight around that unit themselves, but the perimeter setbacks still need to be met on the parent lot. The overall lot coverage applies to the parent lot. So what you end up with, and maybe here's what I can show for this example, on a triplex. So you have an attached triplex on a parent lot. That's the heavy black dotted line is the parent lot. And then the dotted orange lines are the new child lot lines. As you can see, we've got some 0 lot lines for setbacks on the interior. That's okay. But there are perimeter setbacks kind of around the outside of the parent lot. Those setbacks matter. Maximum lot coverage on the parent lot matters. So what this can do, and we've been talking about it internally with some other area planners because we're all dealing with this, is that, for example, should triplex unit number 3 at some point down the road build an addition to their triplex, to their unit themselves, they could conceivably eat up the lot coverage of the entire triplex based on their addition, because the 30%, for example, maximum lot coverage applies to the parent lot, not to each individual child lot. This is where it's going to get tricky for us trying to track what's happening.
And there's going to be legal cases, I can see.
Probably, and I'm really glad I'm not an attorney right about now. But one of the things that the stipulations, and we've got them in the code, that the Senate bill specifically says have to be on the final plats for these, are that, for example, the result of this land division is not 3 single-family homes. This is still, those are still triplex units. The whole project is still a triplex. This land division is solely for ownership purposes, for land transfer purposes. So it doesn't change what those units are. They're still a triplex unit.
So who then owns the, okay, never mind, go ahead.
Right. So if you're asking about, for example, what maybe that parking area or any of that, those are where those easements are, and they're owned in common, so everyone is granted, so probably triplex unit 1 and unit 3 is granting access or parking easement access to all of the other ones. So it ends up being a bunch of easements on top of these individual lots. Yeah. So I think some projects are going to be simpler to divide out than others, but it's different from a condominium because it's through easements. It's not homeowners association, it's all these other things. So it's via easement instead. But it's an option for developers, of middle housing. They have another way of doing it. The final the plats themselves that get created to do these have a lot of stipulations on them saying that this is a middle housing land division. These are not single family homes, et cetera, et cetera. Any one of these units cannot have an ADU because it's not a single family home, they cannot be further divided. That's also part of the Senate bill. So there are several restrictions that come with the Senate bill, but it provides the opportunity to actually divide the land up rather than hold it all in common in a condominium ownership opportunity.
Right.
So it's an alternative. Again, in the proposed amendments that you had in your package, it applies to both detached and attached units. We've made amendments to Title 17, which is our land division code, and amendments to Title 19 to amend the Type 2 review. There's also included, I think it's probably at the very beginning of the code amendments, we included a couple of lines of additional code that amends our section on accessory structures specific to fences. And that matters because of these kinds of, when you have these interior lot lines, it mimics the language that we already have in our cottage clusters for interior fences, have a maximum height of 3 feet so that you don't have 6-foot fences all over the place in these developments. So we've mirrored that language for plex developments as well. So that's why that it might feel kind of outside what we're talking about, but it will matter very specifically for these as well.
Well thought through.
Yeah. This is pretty wordy, but I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that we've included very specific language in our code to make sure that this parent lot, child lot relationship is clear in the code. And that that the development standards for the parent lot still apply to the parent lot. I've been borrowing and with language with Tigard and Beaverton, and we've all been trading language so that a lot of us are using very similar kind of language to make sure that that parent lot, child lot relationship is clear in the code. And then I just wanted to follow up in case anybody had questions about subdivisions, like large lot subdivisions. We do have some larger lots here in the city that are over 1 acre or 2 acres in size. What Senate Bill 458 does not do is give you an expedited process to create a 25 lot middle housing subdivision upon which you could put triplexes and quadplexes. That kind of a large lot subdivision would go through our regular subdivision process, the type 3, and then the 458 would get applied to each individual lot that was created at that point. So there was some back and forth that I had with DLCD staff to make sure that that was in fact the case, because we do have some large lots that could very easily come up with several lots. And we just wanted to make sure that we had the process. So in case anyone was wondering, that kind of a subdivision would go through our regular process. And then if they chose to come through with a 458, it would be for those individual triplexes, for example.
So is there any, I didn't see any, but could have missed it. Is there any sort of direction as to how to break up the parent lot? I mean, like most equitably, or is it just completely however the developer wants to do it? There is no rhyme or reason.
Correct. There is not. Right.
But I kind of looked for that and I didn't see it. So.
No, because we can't require minimum lot size or setbacks or any of those things. It's really about, the parent lot and the middle housing development itself still needs to meet our lot coverage and, and those setbacks. But once you start putting the new lot lines can go wherever they want. But there's still the spacing between the units that we have already in our code. So those middle housing development standards still apply. But once they can put the lines wherever they want, presumably they will do that in some rational way that will make sense. And I'm just going to go with that. Yes. We did bring this to the Planning Commission on April 12th. They voted to recommend approval of the amendments, and we're having our hearing tonight for adoption. Sorry, this is an old slide. The effective date would have been June 17th, but I think we've amended the ordinance so that it would be effective on June 30th, which is the date that is our requirement. That's our deadline, in case there was a different outcome this evening. So.
Okay.
But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Kathy, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thanks for asking. I read through the packet and I appreciate your presentation. Once again, Vera, you anticipated any questions I might have had. I'm not sure how you do that. It's a little creepy. But no, and you honestly have been building us up toward this throughout the hearings we had on the last comp plan package. So I didn't have any big surprises in here. I appreciated that you addressed the fences. When I got to that section, I went, oh, good. So yeah, no, I think it looks good. It makes sense to me.
questions.
All right, have there been any, have we received any additional correspondence on the topic?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed middle housing code changes?
I see no mail in the inbox, and I see no yellow comment card.
Then I will not read that entire paragraph. If there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the middle housing SB 458 code changes hearing.
I move to close the public comment part of the hearing on the proposed middle housing land division code changes.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public comment part of the hearing on the proposed middle housing land division code changes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. Passes unanimously. So the public comment part of the public hearing on the proposed middle housing land division code changes is closed. Is there any council discussion? Kathy, anything?
Good job.
Yes, outstanding job. Yeah, I mean, this was a pretty by rote thing. We didn't have lots of wiggle room or options, so you guys did a good job of crowbarring in the few that we had. Thank you. Is council ready to vote? So it'd be that one. Yeah.
I move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending Milwaukie Municipal Code MMC, Title 19 Zoning Ordinance, and Title 17 Land Division for the purpose of addressing middle housing land division per Oregon Senate Bill 458, file number ZA-2022-001.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded for first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending Milwaukie Municipal Code MMC, Title 19 Zoning Ordinance, Title 17 Land Division for the purpose of addressing middle housing land division per Oregon Senate Bill 458, file number ZA-2022-001. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Oh.
And I'm abstaining.
And abstain. And opposed? None heard. So it doesn't pass unanimously by council members present. Passes but not unanimous. Since the vote was not unanimous, the ordinance must be read at two separate meetings. Ms. Ober, please read the ordinance one time in full.
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the Milwaukie Municipal Code, MMC, Title 19 Zoning Ordinance, and Title 17 Land Division for the purpose of addressing middle housing land division per Oregon Senate Bill 458, file number ZA-2022-001.
All right, so the second reading and adoption will be set for the next council meeting on June 7th, 2022. Thank you very much, Vera. Excellent job, as always. Unless people have.
Yeah, I have
Council
one thing
reports,
under
right?
council reports, which you have in front of you is a draft letter to ODOT Rail. And I threw this in because the deadline for this is Friday. This is the comment on their rail inventory and the projects in there that are pretty significant that stand to impact Milwaukie. They're not necessarily projects I think we oppose, but they're projects we would like to see some conditions or some guardrails put on.
Sure. Yeah,
You're okay with it?
good. Yeah, well done. It's really distressing that just no.
No outreach to us at all. Yeah. Counselor Nicodemus,
with it.
you're all right with it? Okay. I don't know if Counselor Heisey's still on, or did she go ahead?
Still on.
Oh. Did you get it?
It looks fine to me.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much.
So
I'll work with Scott to get it prettied up and on letterhead and everything.
sign it.
Okay.
Just let me know when it's ready and I'll come in and sign it. Thank you very much.
All right, with that, I'm going to move to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
I was trying to call up results on my phone back there if I couldn't get them. I don't know.